effect of financial burdens on taxpayers because of this lack of morals being taught in the church, with the public school system. Matter of fact, you go to the public school system today, and they teach you there is no right or wrong. There is no, I don't even know if you're a lawyer or girl anymore. I mean, there's no orders, no guidelines. If you shove your kids down the street, there's no right or wrong. They have no conscience fear of God. It's just whatever they can get away with. And as a result, we're seeing crime and violence and nothing else. So there is a value to churches producing morality in people. And the country understood this. That's one of the reasons the churches have tax exemption, and that's what these Rockefellers and Carnegies jumped into the church's category with their foundations.
It's very interesting because, I mean, we do see commands in Scripture for the church and its responsibility, but Bill, I don't see commands in government for the caring of the poor or to provide food or provide for education.
Right, so God gives commands to the five main identifiable groups: individuals, families, business, church, and government. There are commands for individuals to take care of the poor. Families, mostly it's relational, husbands love your wives, children with your parents. Business commands are mostly, do not say work, don't hold back wages. There are commands for the church to take care of the poor. Historically, the church has. And the church started in hospitals, orphanages, medical clinics, and most of the schools, and all of that. There's no command for the government to take care of the poor. There's no command for the government to be involved in healthcare education. The command of the government is the shortest. What means it punches the What happens is the government has usurped the church's role. And when it does, the government begins to have a class of politicians that realize that they get elected by promising the poor, they'll give the poor. And they basically want the poor to stay poor so they can have the poor as voters, so they can continue to get their vote by promising to give the poor.
Wow.
And so it's a bait and switch. Whereas if the church helps people, it wants the person to get out of their bad situation, become well off, right, so they can give and help the next needy person that comes along.
Yeah, but very interesting deal because, I mean, this is not what charity is supposed to be. I mean, when it's involuntary, it really is not charity. When you have the government doing it rather than the church.
Right, so the Bible's filled full of verses on private property. The promised land, the lands of God not given to this private property to each individual family permanently. If you own private property, you're going to accumulate stuff. That's called being blessed. Then you're going to go to the market yard and give something away. That's called charity. Then you look at what the government does. Karl Marx said, so how can it do something that God says? Abolition of private property. And so if you don't own any property, how can you give any of it away? What are you going to do, steal from somebody else and then give it away? Now you're a thief. No, and so they lie. It's one early church. They own everything in common. Two differences. Voluntary versus involuntary. They voluntarily sold their land. They were forced to. And the second is church versus government. They made the money at the feet of the apostles. They didn't bring the money to the feet of Pilate. They didn't Pilate. They had a little more money for the government to spread around. Your politicians told sweat those that come to the same power. Like in Egypt, we'll give you the bag of grain, but in exchange for your land, your cattle, your children, your lives. Remember, the government gives anything in exchange for something. Remember, the church helps people. The only exchange is they want to help that person to become, feel the love of God, and then themselves become successful so they can help the next needy person that comes along.
So what happened to the church and its role in these areas then?
Right, so it was creeping in. First, it was, well, we'll help out. Sort of like, the church has a benevolence ministry helps the poor, and the church is like, well, let's just pool together and have a feeding building, and a bunch of churches will pitch in for it. Okay, that's nice. And then the government comes along and says, we'll help. Give a little money. And then the government says, well, we'll remove that cross, because it's sort of, it's intimidating to people. Nobody wants you to stop witnessing to it, stop proselyting. It just be a distribution center for the government. And then the gospel's lost.
Great. Wow. Bill, we're going to have to jump ahead. Take us up to 1942 during World War II under FDR.
Right, so he had Woodrow Wilson, and he had the World War I income tax. It was reduced after the war to, again, only the extreme wealthy paying, and then World War II comes along. And FDR pushes through the largest tax increase in American history. He made it so that everybody pays tax. And they had billboards up that said, smash the axes, pay your taxes. The axes were the Nazis, the Mussolini, the Italians, the Japanese, Imperial Japan. And, but it was this idea that, hey, you're doing your part to pay it. The interesting thing was, the bill came at the end of the year. Nobody had saved enough money to pay the government this extra. And so Ernst Rummel, who was the chairman of Macy's department store, he became the head of the Federal Reserve. He came up with the idea of withholding. That you would have, it would help your paycheck a little every month, and so you wouldn't realize at the end of the year that you just paid a big chunk of your salary to the federal government. And anyway, but this was all instituted as an emergency effort to get money to fight Hitler. Once the war stopped, it didn't. Right? 3 years ago, there was a telephone tax, and it was originally put in place to raise money to pay for the Spanish American War. And here we are in the 1940s and 50s. They're like, why would we pay this tax? Like, once they get in, they stay in. So John Kennedy, he said this in 1961. In meeting the demands of war fighting, the individual income tax moved from a selected tax imposed on the wealthy to a means by which the majority of our citizens participated in paying. So John Kennedy said it was for the purpose the demand of war finance. And then Kennedy explained that withholding on wages and salaries was introduced during the war, when the income tax was extended to millions of new taxpayers. Again, emergency effort, World War II, instituted paycheck withholding, war stopped, it did.
Bill Federer is with us here today on Crosstalk, and folks, we're going to take a quick break and come back, and we're going to hear a little bit more, because what I'm hearing from some of the principals of President Kennedy, he would not be welcomed by the party they represented at that point. Today's party would not allow him to be in with his viewpoint. So we're going to pick up with this right after the break, but perhaps this is all new information for you about the history of the income tax and how we got to where we are. Bill has put this in a book called The Interesting History of Income Tax. It's about 176 pages. It's got pictures in it. It's available. Here, our way of saying thank you for your support of $18 or more to Crosstalk. It's available online at bcyamerica.org, bcyamerica.org, or by calling 1-800-729-9829. We'll be back in 1 minute. This is Crosstalk on the BCY American Network. Our society is being influenced by the entertainment media, and we don't even realize it. Why is it that many Christians entertain themselves by watching movies or programs that take God's name in vain, or feature sensual activity on Saturday night, and then go to church on Sunday to praise His name? That's the underlying message in the DVD, Power of the Air by Dave Cristiano. This moving story features a missionary from Africa who warns that the church in America is being deceived and in great danger. A Christian that hears this message is convicted and makes a significant change in his life, and sets out a plan to reach his city with the gospel. Watch this story unfold in the DVD, Power of the Air. Available now for a donation of $18. Call 1-800-729-9829. 1-800-729-9829. This is Crosstalk on VCY America. William J. Finner is our guest today. The history of the income tax. How did we get to this point? We're up to the point of President John F. Kennedy, and Bill, as I said going into this break, he would not be welcome. His views would not be welcomed by today's Democratic Party because he had some beliefs that sound more like they're coming from the Republican Party today than from the Democratic Party. But what did Kennedy believe on this issue of taxes and want to put into practice?
Right, so Kennedy saw that World War II is over, and we had a Marshall Plan where we were helping to rebuild Germany and Japan with brand new equipment, and they were producing stuff more efficiently and cheaper than we were, and they were beginning to take a percentage of the global market away from us, and we were still using pre-World War II old coffee machine. And so Kennedy said, we've got to do something to stimulate the businesses. And so he also saw that when squeeze the sponge, the water goes out. And in other words, if you make taxes higher over in America, and the taxes are less in China, Japan, or Germany, or some other place, India, businesses will go. It's no different than if you are driving down the street and you need to buy some gas. And the gas station on this side of the street is $5 a gallon. And the gas station on the other side of the street is $2 a gallon. What are you going to do? You're going to make a left turn and go in the that's no different than a business saying, if I stay in America, I've got to pay more. And if I do my business overseas, I pay less. And so Kennedy was noticing this trend. And so he also noticed that the higher wages and benefits that were being paid in America, which businesses out, more lawsuits in America, more government bureaucracy, more environmental restrictions, and then what's called favoritism or cronyism, where companies that donate to the politicians that are in power get favorable treatment, and if you don't donate it, then the government will crush your little business. And so, anyway, so Kennedy was seeing these businesses leave, and then the businesses, their choice was go out of business or go out of the country. And so we've had 50 years of this more and more businesses moving out. President Trump tried to reverse that, and but Kennedy said this. I've asked the Secretary of Treasury to report whether present tax laws may be stimulating an undue amount of flow of American capital to industrial companies abroad. Like, right, the higher taxes here, lower taxes there. Kennedy also says, in those countries where income taxes are lower than in the United States, the ability to defer the payment of U.S. tax by retaining income in subsidiary companies provides a tax advantage for companies operating through overseas subsidiaries, which is not available to companies operating solely in the United States. So these companies would move overseas, and then they would make their products and then ship them back into America. But there were all those tariff taxes. Well, they would use their money to buy politicians, and they would get the politicians to lower tariff taxes so they could bring stuff back into America cheaper. Years ago, I ran for Congress, and I went to this one factory where they made leather binders and they sold to Walmart and big stores. And, the guy supported my campaign. A couple years later, I ran for Congress. I go to the guy, his factory's empty. He only has a couple people. And he says, Walmart came to him and says, we can get this exact binder made overseas, probably through slave labor or something. But we did it. She said, they could get the finished product cheaper than what I could buy the raw material. So I had a choice. I could go out of business, or this one, I moved all my factory overseas. We just had a couple ladies in the office to shovel papers. So this is a real thing. Through taxes that can create or kill jobs in America. So Kennedy proposed tax cuts. And he said, it was a stimulus plan. This was in 1963. The tax cut means higher family income, higher business profit. Every taxpayer in this family will have more money left over after taxes for a new car, home, convenience, education, investment. Every business will receive a higher percentage of his profits and use the money to expand or improve his business. And as the federal government, a little bit with more money. So in other words, if you have a growing economy, the federal government can take a smaller percentage and we'll still get money. So would you want a bigger percentage of zero or have a smaller percentage of big number? And so the idea was, let's give our businesses tax cuts so they can have brand new equipment and compete with those businesses that have moved overseas. And let's give people tax cuts so they can have more money to spend. What they're going to do, they're going to buy product. And if that will hire more workers, maybe increase demand, and so we'll get rid of unemployment. So the caveat is you give tax cuts to businesses that are in America, not to another business overseas, because that's not going to help them.
Not only lowering tax rates to stimulate economic activity, the soundest way to raise revenue, cut the rates.
Now, this was being challenged by a guy named John Maynard Keynes. He was a London economist, and he came up with something called debt-stimulating economy. What's that? Well, imagine a chalkboard, and the guy draws a bunch of arrows in a circle. So the top arrow, the government goes in debt by spending money in the private sector to help businesses create jobs. Those jobs will pay taxes. Those taxes will pay off the debt. It looks great on a chalkboard. The only problem is politicians said, hey, let's go a little more in debt, and then let the next Congress worry about paying it off. And the next Congress will go a little more in debt. So pretty soon you got congressmen say, forget even worrying about paying the debt. We're just going to continue to go in debt, spend money, and then not worry about paying off the debt. And so this is where we got into a trap. And there was an economist named James Buchanan. He won the Nobel Prize in economy in 1986. And he discovered, so he's an economist who was, why are these politicians voting for debt? We're paying so much more federal taxes just on the debt service system. Not even paying off this. And there's no way we're going to pay it off. Why do politicians do this? He noticed that if the politicians up for re-election, they would vote to increase the debt so they could funnel money to their district because it'll help get votes. Yeah. And they won't vote for a tax increase to pay off the debt. And so he won the Nobel Prize to figure out what's motivating politicians now getting re-elected.
Amazing. And the following that this going into debt, getting more money, paying off, so to speak, and all these projects, it's something that actually then benefited the politician.
Yeah, they want to keep their job, and they want voters to vote for them. And if they can tell their district, hey, I paid for a new highway, I paid for a levee, I paid for a bridge, then the people will like him and take the bridge after it, and they get to keep the job. So it turns out, where all the politicians do, they go up to the feeding trough, like on a farm where you got the big thing over the feeding trough, and they want to bring home money to their district, and it ends up, the federal government more in debt, and it just becomes this blob where all of the taxes are going to the big entities. And we turned the corner just a few years ago, where it's now virtually impossible to pay off the debt. And so with that, the thought is, well, we'll just create more money. Okay, you create more money, well, if you're not increasing the number of goods, and you increase the amount of money in the money supply, you will have more dollars chasing the same amount of goods. The price of the goods will go up. So there's no more real estate in America. What's there is there. And so if you have these stimulus bills with trillions of more dollars created, the price of real estate has got to go up. The fixed manufacturing, everything's going to go up in price. And we're going to see inflation. And what is it? Your causes all savings to evaporate. So you save up $1,000, and they can buy a certain amount of goods. But with inflation, that $1,000 ends up buying less and less and less. So pretty soon it's the same as $10. Like Zimbabwe, they would print these $1 trillion notes, these $1 trillion bills, but they could buy anything. The prices continues to go up. So that stimulating economy sounds good on chalkboard, but it always falls. And one of the things right now is that every major empire in world history, the enormous debt is what finally causes the collapse. And if you look at the Roman Empire, as long as they would expand and conquer, they would live on the wealth that it took from the people that it conquered. And so the people in the city were really looking at how to give us more money coming in. But when they finally maxed out, Hadrian built this great wall that they weren't expanding anymore. So now they had to live within their means, and they were used to spending, and they get a debt, and the Roman Empire finally breaks. The Mongolian Empire, Genghis Khan, he conquers Greece, other Russia, the largest contiguous land empire in world history, and they invented paper currency. And people kind of printed too much of it, so pretty soon nobody wanted it. And they got his debt, and a great Mongolian Empire then. Florence had the Italian Medici family, but they got in debt. And then Philip of Spain, he had a Spanish Armada attack England that sank, and he lost a lot of money. And then he had another Spanish Armada attack England, and it was destroyed in a hurricane. The two of them, and then you had another Emperor Philip III. He tried to send an armada to conquer England, and it gets smashed. And Spain was bankrupted, and so they were getting lots of gold from the New World, but they were spending it as fast as they got it. They weren't putting it into helping Spanish businesses become successful. And the old Roman Empire, you had the French Empire, which for a while was the largest empire in the world. It fell because of debt. The Confederacy in America South, it got in debt and cratered. The Ottoman Empire. So here you had in 1087, the Muslims invade the Byzantine Empire. They destroy all 7 churches that were in the Book of Revelation. They finally conquered Constantinople, and the Muslims lived and taxed the non-Muslims. And so if you were a Christian, you would have to ransom your life once a year by paying an enormous tax. Well, over the centuries, either the Christians would convert to Islam, or they would die off, or they would leave, and a tax base left. And the Ottoman Empire got in debt, and then eventually cratered. Tsar Nicholas of Russia, his empire got in debt. Finally, Britain, they had World War I, World War II, they got in debt and cratered. And then the Soviet Union, Reagan put in place an arms race, where we spent money to have the top-notch military equipment and missiles, and Russia wanted to keep up, but they kept spending more and more on military, less and less on building their economy and their businesses and so forth, that you couldn't even buy a loaf of bread at their grocery store. And so it caused Russia to bankrupt. So financial bankruptcy always precedes the end of a civilization or an empire. And in America, we are voluntarily doing to ourselves what we did to the Soviet Union. Right. Because they had to spend money they didn't have, they went bankrupt. We're voluntarily bankrupting ourselves.
We're taking a quick break here, folks. We're opening our phone lines as well. If you'd like to ask Bill a quick question, a brief comment, 800-733-9829. That's 1-800-733-9829. The history of the income tax. And folks, where we're headed is for internal destruction, economically speaking, and as a nation. Back in a minute. For the Worldview Report, I'm Brandon House. Our website is worldviewreport.com. Recently, I heard CBS report on something I wasn't sure I would ever hear, and that is on the red heifers in Israel. CBS News is reporting indeed what we have reported now for quite some time. The 5 red heifers that have gone from Texas to Israel. If one or more can be qualified as able to be sacrificed, this will be the ashes mixed with water that will purify a temple or a tabernacle. But even CBS acknowledged that the October 7th attack on Israel was related to these heifers. Listen. In a recent speech, Hamas spokesman blamed the Jews for bringing red cows to the Holy Land. Cows he's talking about, a secure, undisclosed location, are these red heifers. To be precise, some Jews and Christians believe they're the key to rebuilding the historic Jewish temple. Amazing, my friends. Keep your eye on Israel and Jerusalem. Again, a reminder, Bill's book, The Interesting History of Income Tax, available through Crosstalk, our way of saying thank you for your support of $18 or more, available at vcyamerican.org, vcyamerican.org, or by calling 1-800-729-9829. We've got a number of callers lined up here, but Bill, just before we do, you had an interesting quote from former President Ford.
Right, so the socialist movement is the government's going to take care of everybody, welfare, schooling, and everything. He gave a quote, 1974, Gerald Ford. He says, people propose that the government should provide more benefits. He said, the government big enough to give us everything we want, the government big enough to take away everything we have. So basically, it's a backdoor into socialism by getting everybody receiving that free stuff from the government, they get dependent on it. Right? Okay.
Yep. Let's go to Al, calling in from Milwaukee. You're on the air, Al.
The website called LostVariety.com, and the gentleman there wrote a book called Cracking the Code. And the majority of Americans are not even subject to income tax. So it's very interesting website and book.
Okay, thank you, Al. Don't know if you're familiar with it, Bill. Let's go to Doug in Kansas. You're on the air, Doug.
Hi, how you all doing today? Thank you for having me on. I know you're making a lot of people calling. I'm not going to pay income taxes now. But I did want to clarify something and ask this gentleman. I'm actually one of the guys that was paying at one time. But I found out after constant, communication with the IRS over time. But I found out during my study that the bottom of the record 4 is talking about the anticipated tax liability. Well, I later found out that a court ruling that a man has a right to get up in the morning and make a living without being taxed. The way they get away with it is what, and I want to ask this if you would agree with me, is the way they get away with it, the definition of income tax is money derived off of profit and gain. When a gentleman wakes up in the morning and goes to work, and he switches his labor for money, it's called compensation. Big difference.
Okay, we'll have him comment on that, Bill.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that Lenin said that you grind the middle class out of existence between the two millstones of taxation and inflation. So in other words, for every socialist experiment, you have to get rid of the middle class. And so Lenin killed off the kulaks, the K-U-L-A-K-S, they were the farmers, they were the middle class. And all that was left was the rich people and the mass of poor people, everybody else. Well, once you killed off all the kulak farmers, they had a famine in 1921-22, and 1 million people died. It's like, gee, didn't see that coming. But the goal of it, in Lenin's mind, is that you grind this middle class out of existence between the two millstones of taxation and inflation. So there's, some people say, well, why don't they just create more money rather than tax people for it, because they're creating trillions of dollars out of nothing right now.
Interesting. I guess the aspect of you mentioned there's some controversy about the passing of this amendment, whether Americans are subject to the income tax or not. Is that question still hanging out there, Bill?
Well, it is one. I tell people, what hill do you want to die on? I know somebody that they have paid income tax for 30 years, and they're not able to get a job, and they got a college degree, but and it's like, his whole life is like limited because of it. I want to, if I'm going to die, I want to die on the hill of stand up for Jesus and allowing the freedom of the gospel to be proclaimed. And
I got to
what issues most important to me. I focus my energy on, pay your taxes.
Thank you for the call.
Render Caesar what Caesar, God was God.
Yeah, and that's how Jesus responded when he was asked about paying tribute to Caesar. That which is Caesar's to God. That which is God's way of